This winter was nasty nationwide. From up here in Boston, Massachusetts to you folks down there in Texas, we all got our fair share of snow, ice, cold, and up here in the north we also have to deal with salt. And all of those things stain boots and just leave them in a horrible state. So we're going to go through a couple of different ways to treat boots after winter so that we can bring them back or prepare them for the winter that's left to come. Winter is coming. It's always coming. So let's get into it.
I'm just here to connect ya, and then I'll be on my way.
My name is Jeremiah Craig. Thank you for clicking on this video today. We're going to go through a couple of different processes depending on the boots that you might have or the issues that you might have after winter. Both processes will need saddle soap, a brush, a little bit of water, and some rags. And then over here on the Ariat Heritage Ropers today, we're just going to give it mink oil treatment, and that's it, to see what happens and bring these boots back a little bit just with mink oil. Over here on the Hondo 7875s, we have to do a little bit extra, and you'll see why in a moment. So I've set aside some edge dressing, some Bick 4 leather conditioner, and some snowproof weatherproofing. For the purposes of this video, I'm only going to treat one boot so that you can see the before and after. So I'm going to take out the, let's see, okay, so we have more of a stain on this left area here, as you can see on the side. So I think this one will be a good one to do. So let's do both of the left boots here, and we're going to set aside the right boots and see what they look like in comparison after. No matter which process you do, always make sure that you get rid of all of the extra dirt and salt or just things that are lingering on top of the boot so that you don't force it in more as you're cleaning. So try to get as much excess salt, dirt, mud, whatever is on here off before doing the saddle soap. Alright, now these boots are brushed off and ready for some cleaning and conditioning. Let's do the process with the Ariat Heritage Roper first and the mink oil, and then we'll come back to the Hondo 7875 and treat those the way that they need to be. Alright, so you may have seen this in some of my other videos. It's kind of a common thing. I dip my brush here in the water and then just sort of scrape it around the saddle soap so that I get some sudsiness. I want some nice sudsiness on this brush. There we go, there we go. And then we just take it to the boot. Saddle soap is not something that you need to do every time you clean a boot, but only when you are really wanting a deep clean. I would not recommend doing saddle soap every time you clean a boot, and definitely not on exotics, but after a nasty winter where there's lots of mud and lots of salt, you want to make sure that you get that deep clean so that you're ready for another winter, or just to make sure that you got no salt left on this boot. And then wipe off the excess. Then set it aside to dry for a little bit. Now that it's dry, you can see that the cleaning really didn't do much for the stain. It did, however, clean it up. Now let's take the mink oil to it and see if we can make this stain look any better. Mink oil will darken most leathers, but if you have a boot that you're using primarily during the winter anyways, you might not care. But if you have more dressy boots and you don't want the leather color to change, mink oil will probably be something that you want to stay away from. Just take the mink oil and take a little bit in your fingers here. It's not going to kill you. There we go, there we go. Warm it up here, and then put it on the boot. And I'm really rubbing that oil into the part of this boot that had been stained by the water and the salt. And as you can see, it is darkening it a little bit, but after it dries, we will see what it looks like. Wow, that mink oil really makes the leather supple. I love the feel of this now, and it looks great. Let's let it dry a little bit more and then compare it to the other boot, which we left untreated. After the boot has dried, you can tell how much darker the leather has become with the treatment than without it. So, I mean, be prepared for this drastic of a color change. However, this color will lighten up as the leather dries out, as you wear it, and before it needs treatment again. So as it dries out, it will probably end up being this color eventually, but just know right off the bat that it's going to darken the color of the leather pretty considerably. However, you can tell also that there are no salt stains on this boot. This is a much better look. If you had a salt stain and you needed to get rid of it, mink oil is definitely a good option, but it will change the color of your boots pretty considerably, as you can tell. All right, now let's treat this Hondo boot. Same process, we gotta start with the saddle soap and really make sure we give this boot a deep clean before we condition it. Now that the Hondo 7875 is dry from the saddle soap, we can use some Bick 4 leather conditioner. Now, you could use the mink oil on this boot just like we did with the Ariat Heritage Ropers, but I wanted to show you a little bit different of a process, especially because we have a heel that is completely drained of color. The winter, the salt, the slush, the snow has drained this of the brown and just turned it to its previous leather color. This looks a little bit silly since it is so light and it kind of stands out from the rest of the boot. So we're going to hit it with some edge dressing, but before we do that, I want to make sure that we put some conditioner on here to make this heel last as long as possible. So we're going to use some Bick 4, condition the heel and the rest of the boot while we're at it, along with the welt, because as you can see, we also have some discoloration here, which we'll also fix with the edge dressing. But like I said, we need to make sure that we hit it with the conditioner first. And you can just put it on the boot. This is a retan leather, which means it was tanned twice, chrome tanned and vegetable tanned. And this is my first winter with a retan leather boot, and it did awesome. I really like how this boot did. I used this the most in the winter this year, and I'm really happy with how it performed. So I want to make sure that I condition it and take care of it so that next winter, or if March or April even gives us something of a surprise, last storm of winter, then this will be ready to handle it. And now we will let this dry again. Once the conditioner has dried and soaked up all into the leather here, we can use the edge dressing on this heel to bring some color back into it. Now this edge dressing here is very messy. So how it works is you have a little dipper on the cap, right? This little cotton dipper. So what I like to do so that it doesn't spill all over the boot and stain it in areas where I don't want it to be, I usually dip it in and then just sort of get rid of the excess on a cloth. You know, I don't want it dripping all over the boot when I put it on this heel. That's happened to me before. When I put on the heel and it's completely saturated, it ends up getting everywhere. So be careful when you use edge dressing because it can literally get everywhere. And then we just want to put it along the heel here, as you can see, and let it soak up into that leather, bringing the color back into it. And this will protect it as well. You might have to do this again later on. And I'm gonna get the leather underneath the sole as well, just to make sure it's completely protected all the way around. And then we want to get the welt too. So you can see here that the welt has some discoloration as well from the salt, and that's also leather, so we can touch up that as well. So let's go all the way around this boot. And be careful when you do this, because you don't want to stain the boot in areas that don't need it, right? So just make sure you get the welt where it needs the most attention. There we go. Now let's wipe off the excess edge dressing here. Alright, now you can see that the heel is looking much darker, much better here after that edge dressing. And I like to make sure that the leather is conditioned before you put the edge dressing on there. Just kind of protects and brings some color back into it. So you want to make sure that you put the conditioner on before you do anything else. And also the next step, which is the snow-proof weatherproofing, doesn't really condition. It does a little bit, but I like to make sure that the boot is conditioned as much as possible before we do the protectant. This is the snow-proof weatherproofing that I love so much, and already you can see that the stains have pretty much gone away on this. This is a retan leather, so it really didn't take too many stains. It did look pretty nasty at one point, but it seems to be dealing very well with the treatment process so far, and this will protect it even more. I put this on it before the winter even started, so this is definitely a good preventative measure. So make sure that you put this on before a big snowstorm or if you have a lot of wet weather. This I like to put on with a rag because it is really waxy and kind of sticks with you for a little bit. So it might even be weird picking up your boots after you put this on. So take a rag and then just apply it to the boot in a nice little circular motion. And you can see a video where I used this in the past on some boots and then sprayed my boots with a hose immediately after. It's kind of cool. It makes the water bead up and it really works. This stuff really works is what I'm trying to tell you. So definitely a good product that you should consider using on the boots that see a lot of weather. And there you have it. So this is the treated boot over here, and this is the boot that we left untreated, and we can see how much better this boot looks after the treatment process. The heel has some more color to it. It's ready for winter. There's no stains in the areas that were dried out. As you can see down here, this has a little bit of drying on this boot. You can see kind of where it was, but this leather is looking much healthier now, and it's ready for another few weeks of winter, and then we're gonna have to do it again. This snow-proof weatherproofing will only last you a couple of weeks, and then you'll need to do it again, but it is a very good protective measure to make sure your boots withstand a nasty winter with some nasty salt and a whole bunch of other different kinds of things. It will protect it against stains as well. That stuff is incredible. So I definitely recommend you picking up some if you are in a wet weather area or a snowy weather area. Alright, so those were two different treatment methods to protect your boots from snow, or maybe bring them back if they have a little bit of staining or they're looking like they are in need of some love. Those were two different ways. Of course, we had the mink oil over here and a little bit more of a laborious process over here with several more steps. But with the leather heel and the condition that it was, I felt like it needed it. You might not need to do that every time, but these definitely needed some edge dressing for sure. So those are my processes. Which one do you use most often? And do you have any other processes for people coming through and interested in making sure that their boots are ready for winter? Let me know down in the comments. Anybody coming through, if you're looking for other things to try, definitely check down there as well. We got lots of awesome, intelligent folks in this community. Thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and I will see you around. Peace. Take care of your boots in the salt and the snow. The better they will look and the further they will go. If you're looking for other cowboy boots that might be good during the winter, why don't you check out this video I did up here about the Double H. Or I got a song down here that I think you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Peace.